quick note, kind of on a housekeeping item, but also some exciting information to share. This summer, as many of you know who've been around here for a little while, during the summer we go into like one sort of all-together worship experience. This summer is going to be different and probably the new normal, but we're gonna continue these same times, 9:15 and 10:45. And you've kind of asked the question before. I've heard around like, hey, we could probably squeeze all together, and we could probably make this work. You know, fire rules aren't really that set in stone. No. The reason really is that was driving this is something just super exciting. Is that last weekend we had more kids in our children's ministry than we have ever had before. And so let's just celebrate for a minute now that we got to tell more kids about Jesus than ever, which is super awesome and also just impossible to maintain all summer long. In fact, I spoke with Megan, our children's min director, earlier, and she said, listen, if we had all of our kids, if we just had 3/4 of our regulars here on a Sunday morning, all at the same time without splitting up at all, we'd probably be short about 24 spots for kids. It's like a couple dozen kids, excluding any visitors, who wouldn't be able to attend. So I know it's like, whoa, okay, so I'm gonna switch gears, keep on my schedule, 9:15 and 10:45 for Sunday serving teams, but it's huge because you're making the difference for a couple dozen kids to hear about Jesus every single weekend. Okay, today we're gonna continue on and we're gonna actually finish off this series called I Quit, but I have to give a quick plug to next week where we start a brand new series called In the Mess. Some of you have probably somebody in your life that you want to invite to church, maybe a friend or a coworker, and you're like looking for that opportunity. This is a perfect time, especially if they, like all of us, live very, very messy lives. I think one of the reasons why this series In the Mess is so critically important to us as a community is because we often fall into this trap of thinking that the Christian life is all about clean living and like straight lines, and the reality is totally different. In fact, the story that God tells in the Bible and also the book of Genesis, specifically as we get into the story of Jacob in Genesis, is that the stories that God tells are really, really messy. In fact, we say that God doesn't avoid the mess, he doesn't step around the mess, but he's found in the mess, that grace is found in the mess. That's next week, new series, In the Mess. This morning, I want to wrap up this series by sharing with you a picture that I actually posted to my Instagram account a little while ago. It was about a year ago now. This is my son. I think he's 4 at the time. Before you start questioning my parenting too much about why my 4-year-old son is in a floor-to-ceiling pink bedroom, I want to say he's there. He's underneath the bed, and he's waiting for two things. Maybe one, to terrify his older sister when she comes to bed, or two, because he, at that age, and all the time, loves playing this game, hide and seek, right? I mean, all kids I think love this. It starts with peekaboo, which is just kind of a simple form of hide and seek because they think that, if they can't see you, then you can't see them, so that's like the hide and seek element there. But he loves playing this game so much, and you can see even, he's got a good hiding spot picked out underneath the bed. But what I love about this kid, and most kids in general, is that when they play hide and seek, they really, truly want to be found, right? Like he's got a good spot picked out, but he doesn't go all the way to the back where it's dark and where nobody's ever going to find him. He hangs out in the front because he wants to make sure that even though he's hiding, you can still see him. This is the same kid that I'll come home from work and he'll just scurry off and go hide, but like his lower half is going to be hanging out from behind the couch. And every time I say, Colin, where are you? He'll start giggling. He wants to be found. Contrast how my kids play hide and seek with how I play hide and seek. Because when I play hide and seek, I go downstairs into the utility room and I hide out behind the furnace because I don't want to be found. And then I flip the circuit breaker off so all the lights go down and it's dark outside. I will never be found. Mostly because they get scared and just start crying until I go, then we switch around. So maybe they're winning. I'm not really sure. But this story serves to highlight this interesting difference, right? Whereas kids, something happens from kids where they play hide and seek to us now as adults, where we just play hide. And I think all of us at some point are hiding from something or hiding for something. So maybe it's something in the past, maybe it's something that we've done, maybe it's someone who we are, someone that we're thought to be. But all of us at some level are hiding. And so today we're going to talk about that. We open up that can of worms and we say, me, I'm not any exception. Some of you have heard, me and Encounter, and you think like, wow, that guy must have this incredible vision for like what this church could look like or should look like, because it started, from him and his wife's living room, and it kind of grew up into Encounter now. And the truth of the matter is, no, like I had no idea what I was doing. In fact, sorry to if that's new information to any of you, I should probably say I had no idea what God was going to do through this place. In fact, some of you would be surprised to find out that in seminary, which is like pastor training school, like I had no idea what I was doing most of the time. I would show up to class and I would actually, this is Dirk, right? I would wear a collared shirt and I would tuck it in, and about half the time, every day, at least once a week, I would wear a tie. Now, some of you have seen me wear a tie, and you comment on it. On Easter, I wear a tie, and I get about 50 comments every year because it's so unusual. And my comment is, hey, if you rose back from the dead, I'd wear a tie for you too. Ha, ha, ha. Okay, I don't typically dress up, but the reason why I did in seminary, like pastor training school, is because I looked at the students who had it all together, and I thought, I want to be like them. In a sense, I want to hide who I actually am. And the problem with that is that when I hide who I actually am, when I give this finely curated display to the world about my greatest vision for who I'd love to be, nobody can actually get to know me. And worst of all is that God isn't going to bless, is that God can't actually bless the person that I'm pretending to be. So I want to tell you a story this morning about hiding. And I want you to know, and I want you to walk out this place knowing that we play this game called hide, and our God seeks. In fact, he seeks us out of hiding so relentlessly that he will not give up. We're going to go to the book of Genesis and start off in Genesis chapter 3. There's Bibles underneath the chairs in front of you. The words are also going to be on the screen behind me. Genesis chapters 1 and 2 start off, and it's the creation story. Creation of what? Everything, like all of it. Genesis chapter 1 is the heavens and the earth, all the stuff that's in the earth, and then Adam and Eve, the first people. Genesis 2. Where we really start to learn a lot more about these people. They're said to be the image bearers of God. They're said to reflect God in their love and care for each other, and their dominion over creation, and their reason and rational, whatever it is. They're said to image God. And I just think it's going to be important this morning that we know that the creation story in Genesis chapter 2 wraps up with these words in 2 verse 25, is that they were naked and they felt no shame. And then we transition into Genesis chapter 3, which a lot of people say begins the fall. All right, Genesis chapter 3 starts off this way. In verse 1 it says, "Now the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, 'Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?'" Now, I want to talk a little bit about what drives us into hiding. And I love how the serpent, right, says, "Did God really say?" He's just injecting that seed of doubt. What he's doing is he's injecting like that wedge into our relationship with God. And he's like, just that bit of doubt that says, did he really say that? And he's just kind of putting it out there, just like a stinger from a bee goes in, and it just drives, like a barb, it just drives itself deeper and deeper and won't ever come out. The more you fidget, the more you fuss, the deeper and the more painful it goes. That's what the seed of doubt, that's what that wedge, that barb does. Did God really say it? But what's underneath that is something even more sinister. What's underneath that is in Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2, every time that God is referred to, he's referred to as the Lord God. Now, if you're reading this on the page, you might see Lord God. Lord is in all caps, but they're smaller squished letters, but still capital letters. And then God is capital G, lowercase O-D. Not just a grammar lesson, but there's something behind that. In Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2, every single time that God is referenced, he's referenced as Lord God. These two words, God is the Hebrew word Elohim. God is something more like a title. It's something like CEO. God is Elohim is like pastor or accountant or sales clerk or like whatever it is. It's a title. The Lord, all caps, lower letters, as you see in a lot of Bibles, including ours, is the Hebrew word, and it's not actually pronounceable because there's no vowels in it, but our best guess is something like Yahweh. It's the divine name. It's a proper name. It's like John or Abby or Sarah or Dirk. It's God accommodating himself to us and saying, I'm not just Elohim, I'm not just God, but I'm also almost like this person that wants to be known. I'm not just God, I'm also personal. I'm also here with you. And so when the serpent starts going about his work with the woman, what he starts to do is saying, not only did God really, not just that seed of doubt, but he also separates off God and Lord. In a sense, he's saying, I'm not calling into question his divinity. I'm calling into question his personal attributes towards you. What the serpent is kind of like doing is saying, I'm not just injecting doubt that he's God. What I'm doing is I'm injecting doubt as to whether he's good. He's still all-powerful. He's still omniscient. He's still Elohim, God. But maybe it's possible, Wedge, that he just doesn't care about you. And he just kind of puts that right there and continues on. And that wedge, that barb, that seed of doubt will just drive itself further and further into Eve's heart and into Adam's as the story continues, because it's that doubt that drives us into hiding. But that's not the only thing that drives us into hiding. Verse 2, the woman said to the serpent, we may eat from the trees in the garden, but God did say, you must not eat from the tree that's in the middle of the garden. You must not touch it, Eve says, that God said, or you'll die. That's interesting. You must not eat from the tree in the middle of the garden. You must not touch it, she adds, or you will die. Now, you have to be a really careful reader of the Bible. I'm not, but the people I read this week were, I assume. Because what they found is that in Genesis chapter 1 and 2, when God, in fact, gives this instruction and says, hey, don't eat from the tree in the garden, in the center of the garden, he doesn't say anything about touching it. That's Eve's own addition. Isn't it true that when we get, especially for you kids, right? When you get an order or a request from a parent, more than that, when you get a judgment from your parent, or for any of us, when you hear a judgment, isn't it true that when you don't like it, you tend to magnify its strictness? For example, kids, I've got a little sermon illustration at home. I mean, a daughter. Sorry, that was really? Nothing? Thank you, one person. Awesome. I've got a daughter at home, and when she invites the neighborhood squad over and they go downstairs, and I had no idea we owned so much stuff until it's evenly distributed throughout the whole basement, but that's another story. And I come down, and I'm like, whoa, kids, like this got out of hand. I have no idea how this happened, but two things have to happen. You got to clean this up right now, and then your friends have to go home. What happens from that point on is that my daughter goes, after cleaning it up, hopefully, she goes upstairs, she talks to Kristen, my wife, and says, Dad told me because I made a mess in the basement, I can never have friends over again. Right? She didn't like the judgment, and so she magnified the level of strictness. Now, we do this all the time at work. And the boss calls somebody in and says, hey, we got to talk about it. Yeah, you being late. I mean, it's like 10 minutes, but I mean, it's every single day. It's disrespectful to the other people. Like, you have to be on time, ready to work when your shift begins. And that's it. But then the guy goes out of that office, and he goes next door to his friends that he works with, and he goes, can you believe what that stuffed shirt just said? He told me that if I'm late one more time, I'm getting fired. When we don't like a judgment about something, we tend to magnify its strictness. So this is going to get a little bit tough. But I recognize that I'm speaking in the context of the hope of heaven, but the reality of hell. And a lot of us do not like and cannot appreciate the judgment of God and think, how could a loving God ever do something like that? And we don't like it. And we magnify the judgment of God. And we say, I don't think that I could ever live with a God like who does that. And we magnify the judgment, and we allow that to drive us further and further into hiding away from him. Doubt drives us into hiding. Judgment, strict judgment, drives us into hiding. And flat out lies. You will not, verse 4, you will not certainly die, the serpent said to the woman. For God knows that when you eat from it, that tree, your eyes will be opened and you'll be like God, knowing good and evil. You see, every good lie isn't just, now people are paying attention. You're like, please tell me, how can I get away with lying? There has to be an element of truth to it. Right? You can't just make something up out of the blue and pass it off as truth. You have to embed it into something that sounds like it could be true. In this case, he says, you will not certainly die. Well, God said that she would die, except for the fact that he knows that when she eats it, it's sort of like the judgment that comes. She won't immediately, I touched it, so zap, lightning bolt, however it works, I'm dead, I'm gone, this instant. No. There's this judgment comes down, and she's going to continue going. So it's a lie, but it's couched in something that really sort of seems like it could be true. Lies, even half-truths, drive us into hiding. Verse 6, when the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was, and we got three things here, is good for food, it's pleasing to the eye, and it's desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some, ate it, and gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. Now, at this point, I have to recognize the folly that is preaching on Genesis 3 on Mother's Day. So I recognize that. So let me just try to get out of the hole that I've gotten myself into just this much. This was new information to me this week, so I'm going to pass it along to you. Oftentimes, we kind of blame Eve, right? And kind of by extension, women in general, saying it's your fault. I can't believe you got us into this mess, the folly of all humanity. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to leave it there. Oftentimes we sort of blame Eve for getting us into this mess. What the text just told us is that Adam was with her, which is kind of interesting as well. And you think maybe he just stopped by for the second half of the conversation. Wait, all throughout the story so far, whenever the word you is used, it's the plural version of the word you. So we don't have a plural version of you in English. It's not used, maybe in some places that say that. Other places down south, they say y'all, right? Everybody, it's plural, it's everybody who's listening, right? So we've got the serpent here and saying, y'all not certainly die. I can't take the devil seriously with a southern accent. God knows that when y'all eat from it, your eyes will be open. He was there. You could probably do some jumping jacks around and try to figure out maybe he wasn't there the whole time, maybe. But the sort of clear implication of the story so far is this isn't an Eve problem or an Adam problem. This is a them problem. They're both owning this thing. Now, the fruit that she ate from that God told him not to is three things. It's good for food. It's pleasing to the eye. And it's probably that third thing that made it so tempting. Desirable for gaining wisdom. You see, God didn't call it desirable for gaining wisdom. God said it was knowledge of good, but also knowledge of evil. It's sort of the practiced wisdom, the first-hand wisdom of knowing that a stove is hot for holding your hand on the burner for a half second. Kids, you get that, right? I understand that it's hot. Mom told me that it's hot, but I'm not actually going to know that it's hot until I'm bandaging my wound for 2 weeks. Then I'll know. Then I have firsthand wisdom that the stove is hot. And God says, if you want to know that way, it's the tree is right there. Go ahead and take it. And they do, not she does, but they do. And then in 8 words in their language, 8 words, it all comes unraveled. 8 words, creation starts to come undone. And there's this whole point about how you could spend your whole adult life building a marriage, and in one decision, one night, unravel it to the point it may never be the same. You could spend your life trying to build and trying to be recognized as a person who walks with integrity and honor. And in one post or one text, one tweet, start to unravel all of it to the point where you may never be recognized the same way again. 8 words is all that it takes. For Eve's part and Adam's, what drove them into hiding was to see the wisdom hanging from that tree. It's the wisdom, the first-hand painful knowledge of evil in this world. And for them to say, it's the one thing I don't have. And so what they do, Adam and Eve, is they take this inner contentment, satisfaction, this hole in their heart that I think only God can fill. And they take it from something internal and they hang it on that tree and to say, it's right there. If only that was mine, then I'll be whole, then I'll be complete, then I'll be content, then I'll be happy, then I'll be satisfied. But until that point, I won't be. Textbook definition of envy. Envy drives us into hiding. Until I get that external thing, I will not be me, or at least the best version of me. Whether it's doubt, lies, envy, driving us into hiding, none of it, I don't think, even holds a candle to this last one, the most powerful one. Verse 7, the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized that they were naked, so they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. It's almost like a joke. Fig leaves were probably the largest leaf to the Mediterranean people, the Middle Eastern people, so it made sense. It was also notoriously bumpy and it would tear easily, so it did not make for good coverings of people. But that's beside the point, because the greater point is probably just hearkening right back up to Genesis 2:25 I mentioned earlier, where it said that Adam and Eve were naked and they felt no shame. And now, after the fall, they were naked, and so they sewed fig leaves together. The clear implication is, for the first time, humanity experienced something that they had never experienced before, and that was shame. And that shame drove them into hiding. You know, around here in Encounter, we'll talk about 3 things often that separate us from God. We'll talk about how fear separates us from God. We'll talk about how guilt separates us from God. This morning, though, we talk about shame that separates us from God. And I think of all of these, shame probably has the most power, the greatest motivating factor in our lives. Because unlike fear and unlike guilt, shame is something internalized. Let me say it like this. When we have guilt over something that we've done. We have guilt over our past, or we have guilt over a decision. We've lied, and we feel guilty about that. We've made a bad or poor financial decision, and we'll feel guilty about that. But what shame does is we internalize the external. So guilt says, I lied and I feel guilty about that. Shame says, I am a liar. Guilt says that I made a poor financial decision. Shame says, I'm bad with money. You see, you can be forgiven from guilt, but you cannot be forgiven from shame. You can be covered from your shame, but it's almost as if you view it as a part of who you are. It's intrinsic into your being. And so it has this extraordinary power to dominate your life and how you view yourself. And it will just drive you further and further away from God and into hiding again and again and again. But even though, church, that we play the game called hide, let me tell you, God's playing one called seek. Amen? He's at work. Listen to this next line. Listen to this. Verse 8, then the man and his wife heard the sound of the Lord God as he was, again we have the Lord God, as he was walking in the garden. He's not done yet. In the cool of the day. And they hid from the Lord God among the trees in the garden. But the Lord God called to the man and he said, "Where are you?" And that's a good question. Where are you? You see, what I love about this so much is that God doesn't ask, "Where are you hiding?" Which almost has a note of accusation to it. He just simply asks, "Where are you?" You see, most of us, when we think about God, we think of God, not the Lord God. And so we think about God as being judgmental. We think about God as being this powerful, harsh, curly-bearded fella walking through the garden. And he's not so much walking as he is prowling, looking to claim another victim. And so we're hiding. But that's not the picture that God gives us, because God is walking through the garden like on a stroll, and the Lord God is walking through. He's not asking, "Where are you hiding?" He's not commanding you to come out of hiding. He's just asking, "Where are you?" You see, the irony of the story is that he knows. I know where you are. I'm God. I'm omniscient. I know everything. But I'm going to ask, "Where are you?" Almost as if to offer you an invitation. Come on back home. It's time. Just tell me where you are, and we can start to clean this thing up together. Still hiding, verse 10, he answered, "I heard you in the garden," Adam says, "and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." In verse 11, "Who told you that you are naked? Have you eaten from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from?" And the man said, "The woman you put here with me." We have to respect his efficiency with words, because he offends simultaneously in one sentence the God of all creation and also the entire rest of humanity at the time. The man said, "The woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree and I ate it." This is beside the point, but I'm going to say it anyway. Adam would go on to live another 930 years after this. And so I just want to invite the response. Like, do you really want to start that life, the next millennia of your life, by blaming your wife? Pass the salt, would you, hun? Yeah, I will. Just as soon as you say sorry for blaming me for the eternal fallenness of humankind. So like salt or no? Okay. Those of you who are just starting off in life, do you really want to spend the next 30 years, 40 years of your life the way that Adam started off his? But that's beside the point. The question this morning, and the question that God has for, I think, every single one of us, is that simple question: church, where are you? Where are you? Just invite the response to come on back home. Where are you? You see, the thing is that most of us, we joke about introducing the eternal fallenness of all of humanity. But that's exactly what happened. I think that most of you sitting here today, when asked the question, "Do you believe that God is playing a game called seek even though we hide?" And you say, "Yeah." Most of us sitting here today, when we said Adam and Eve just started to unravel this creation that God expended countless amounts of energy, and truly we have no way of counting the amount of energy, but God expended this amount of energy to create this whole creation, and in 8 words you started unraveling it. More than that is that God knows just what it means to be unraveled. He knows the pain, he knows the wars, he knows the lies, he knows the divorce, he knows everything that's going to unravel as account of what they did. And he also knows, because of his omniscience, he knows exactly what in the world it's going to cost him to start putting it all together. That is the death of his son, Christ on the cross. He knows all of this. And when I ask, do you believe that God would choose to seek after them anyway? I think most of us would say, I believe that story. But then when I ask, do you believe that God is seeking after you in whatever you're hiding from? you believe he would? And most people would say no. Because what I've done, because of shame, because of who I am, I have to hide. Because a loving God would never love me that much. And I want to ask with as much pastoral empathy as I can, what makes you so special? We play hide. He seeks. He relentlessly seeks after us. It's what he does. His man, Jonah, flees from him as a prophet, gets on a boat heading the wrong direction. God sends a storm and a great fish to swallow him up, to bring him back into his arms. He's relentlessly seeking us out of hiding. He tells this story, and he goes, I've got 99 good found sheep, which in most of your classes is an A. But I relentlessly seek after the one that has gone missing, going out into the wilderness, facing the danger at night, because I'm not done until everyone is come back home. I've got 9 found coins here in my piggy bank in my house, but I will tear this thing upside down, turn furniture over, getting the neighbors here to look for that one coin that has gone missing, because I am relentlessly seeking you out of hiding. You hide, I seek. God says, I've got 2 sons, an older and a younger. And the younger goes off and is a screw up, but then he gets his head together and he finally comes home. We throw a party. My oldest son, though, is out there in the field. He's stewing and he's brewing because he cannot even believe that the father would welcome a kid back like that. And God says, I, as the father, will go out to that son and will beg with him and plead with him to come back into the party, because I'm not done until everyone is back home again. I'm relentlessly seeking you out of hiding. There's a woman at a well, and she's been married 5 times, working on number 6. And she goes there. Jesus meets there at the hottest part of the day, because she just can't stand the looks. She just can't hear one more passive-aggressive comment about her decisions in life. So she decides, I'd rather suffer from heat exhaustion by getting water at the hottest part of the day than to have to face down another one of those looks. And Jesus says, I know you. I know what you've done, and I know who you are. And I love you all the same. You hide, I seek. Now I want to share one last story. I think it's amazing. It's Jesus' friend. It's Lazarus. He dies. And Jesus shows up to the house, and he's days late. He's been dead for a while. As he strolls up, he hears weeping and he hears mourning. And so John chapter 11, Jesus weeps. And Jesus mourns over the loss of his friend. And then he decides that I'm in the position to actually do something about it. And so Jesus stands up and goes to the front of that tomb where they buried him. And he says, roll the stone away. And do you remember what his sister, Lazarus' sister Martha, tells him? She doesn't just say, Jesus, he's dead. She doesn't tell him, Jesus, the stone is heavy. Jesus, is going to take 8 guys to roll this thing away. She doesn't tell him, Jesus, the plain truth of the matter is dead men don't walk. Again, what I love is the 400-year-old English translation of the Bible. The King James Version, I think, says it best. The next verse that she says is, Jesus, he stinketh. It smells. He's been dead for days. I've got news, friends. Whatever's keeping you from hiding, I want to be honest. Listen, it stinks. You know it stinks. That's why you hide it. And the last thing that you want is to roll that stone away and to have your sister or brother or Jesus, your friend, smell the point of your lowest existence in life. But But what's just on the other side of that stone, on the other side of that stench? His life. So I just want to leave you with this. Don't let the fear over your stink keep you from experiencing the life that Jesus is calling you to. We've been talking over these last few months about quitting. Quitting excuses, quitting complaining, quitting comparing. And today, quit hiding. It's time to declare, I quit, to more fully follow Jesus. On the seat back in front of you, there's one of these cards. Grab it right now. Just wherever you are, wherever you're sitting, if you're in the front, it's underneath. Grab one of these cards. It says prayer request, praise report, empty lines. This is a spot right here, right now, where we invite you to share your story about what you're quitting. If this series has made any difference in your life, as if it had helped you follow Jesus, even just this much more closely, we want to celebrate with you. We want to celebrate as a community. What are you quitting? Write that story down. Share it with us. And maybe you're quitting the excuses, saying for far too long I've said now's not a good time. Tomorrow will be better. I have too much to lose, and I quit making excuses. Maybe you've been stuck in the comparison game and trying to keep your eyes focused on that thing, or worse yet, that person. And Jesus is saying, listen, if you keep your eyes on him, eyes on her, you'll be miserable. If you keep your eyes on me, I'll give you a life that you could never experience otherwise. And you're saying, I quit the comparison trap. Share the story with us. If you're saying to yourself, I quit complaining. I quit complaining about him or her or them. I quit complaining about the kids. I quit complaining about the job site. I quit complaining about the office. I quit complaining about church. I quit complaining about my boss. I'm just done with complaining because I realize now that God brought me here for a reason. It wasn't to grumble, it was to grow. I quit. Or if you quit hiding today, share the story with us. We're going to spend a few moments writing out our stories. What are we quitting today to more fully follow Jesus? On the back side, there's a circle. It says, I made Jesus Christ my Savior today. If you quit going through life alone, if you quit putting yourself in the driver's seat and saying, God, I want you in charge of this life, not me, not anymore. Check that box. We want to celebrate what God is doing in your life. Share your stories. If you'd like to, during the last song, we invite you to head on back to the prayer table. And we want to pray with whatever God is up to in your life, wherever you need to see God move in your life during this last song. Let's pray, and then we're going to take a few moments to share our I quit stories and worship together. Jesus, it's in your name that we pray these things. It's in your power that we can stand up, that we can declare, I quit. I quit the excuses. I quit complaining. I quit comparing. I quit this life of complacency. Today I quit hiding from you, God, because you've searched me and you know my heart. You know my fears, my guilt, my shame, God, and you love me the same. God, help me not to hide from you, not to hide any longer. God, I pray for each one of us this morning, especially those who need courage to share these stories. Maybe even to say, I quit trying to steer my own life for the first time. God, give us courage, give us wisdom, give us boldness to declare that we quit whatever is separating us from your infinite love. Amen.